let's go ahead and talk about the lab leak theory. So this is one where, of course, you guys know, can't get enough lab leak here. And for me,
you and Ryan are just like the lab leak.
Because here's the thing. For me, originally, it was where did COVID come from?
Yeah.
That's layer one. But layer two is, well, whoa, what is this multi-billion-dollar infrastructure that exists for funding labs? That's actually second layer. Third layer is, wait, this multi-billion-dollar infrastructure funded by the US government is completely unregulated, unsafe, and has been propagated by maniacs like Dr. Fauci and ideologues who believe that genetically engineering dangerous viruses is going to make us more safe. Then you peel the layer back even more and you find out that it all traces back to the 2001 anthrax attack in October. And then you go a deeper level and find out that we never actually solved that so-called attack or release or whatever you want to call it, and that there are some still very sketchy questions that multi-billions of dollars were printed off of. Basically, we had almost a Patriot Act level of revolution in the sphere of biodefense.
Well, it was literally part of the Patriot Act.
No, I know, but I'm saying it got no attention. Everybody knows about the overreaches of the Patriot Act, of the dangers of the billions of dollars spent on fake TSA screening. Nobody ever asked any questions, including me, until 2021, basically, when we were talking about lab leak in 2020, to say, like, where did all of this come from? So, like, whenever you start to peel back the layers, you just see this, like, vast infrastructure of basically Jurassic Park playing out on a mass human scale. And the craziest part is, using the Jurassic Park analogy, it's like we just had the dinosaurs escape from the cage, and all of us know the dinosaurs escaped from the cage. And the answer from the scientific establishment is, let's give Amgen, I think that's the company, even more money so they can genetically engineer even more vicious dinosaurs.
And
that's the way that we're going to do that.
Don't you dare say we shouldn't be engineering
and don't say that we shouldn't do
these dinosaurs, because if you do, you are an enemy of science
itself. And you're an enemy of science itself. So let's go ahead and put this up there on the screen. Scientists currently linked to the Wuhan lab are back in business because the U.S. is renewing a grant for natural origins research to EcoHealth Alliance. Now, I've talked about this previously, but this is actually a new grant. Quote, from EcoHealth Alliance, we have a lot of human serum samples in freezers around Southeast Asia. They will provide clues. We are resuming, as of this month, the funding of the EcoHealth Alliance with gain-of-function research in Southeast Asia, the very same group that was funding the Wuhan lab. Under the current terms of the grant, they will receive approximately $600,000 for the next 4 years to continue work on, quote, bat origin coronaviruses. It is committed, however, to not subcontract its work to China. Instead, it will just focus on Southeast Asia. And by the way, this isn't just new existing samples. Collecting new virus samples from the wild to engage in recombination, aka gain-of-function research. Still headed by Dr. Peter Daszak. For those who don't need the reminder, or who need the reminder, Dr. Peter Daszak was not only the conduit between Dr. Fauci and the Wuhan lab for funding, he was also, Emily, a member of the World Health Organization's team investigating lab leak, where they came to the conclusion that it was not a lab leak. The way Dr. Daszak arrived at this conclusion, by the way, is he asked the Chinese and they said it was not a lab leak. And whenever, even 60 Minutes was like, are you just taking the words for the Chinese? He's a British guy. And he's like, well, what else can we do? And I'm like, I don't know, like, circumstantial evidence, actually subpoenaing records within the WHO and your own organization. No, we can't do any of that. Okay. So,
I like how you did him sort of as Mrs. Doubtfire.
Yeah, well, that's what was necessary. He actually is a clownish figure. I don't just mean that. I guess I do mean it in a very mean way. Anyway, you should go watch the interview if you're interested.
Well, the audacity, though, of Peter Daszak is, like, unrelenting and somehow remarkable.
Yeah, it is. And that's why.
He shouldn't be able to show his face in public after what he did. And yet he's being quoted with this, like, very arrogant take, like, well, we're very glad to resume this type of blah, blah, blah.
It also reminds me, too, of how badly the media has done a job here. So, for example, if everybody remembers Valerie Plame, this was a household name in the mid-2000s, and the reason why is that she was a CIA agent, she was married to this ambassador, and the ambassador was linked to the yellow cake uranium story. The point that I'm making is that—
You've got the Bob Novak book behind you.
That's right, I've got the Bob Novak book behind you. Back in the mid-2000s, after Iraq WMD, the media actually did their job and said, how do we get this so wrong? I'm not saying that they didn't, apologize completely, but they at least investigated. And household names were people who were intimately involved in the cover-up of Iraq WMD, from the intelligence officials to people like Scooter Libby, like Valerie Plame. All of these were characters who Americans could tell you about because they knew the chain of events which led to the false story about WMD in Iraq, which led ultimately to the invasion. If you are not, online and consume our content or the Joe Rogan podcast or whatever, you don't know who Peter Daszak is. Sure, you know who Fauci is, but you don't know some of the secondary and, frankly, most important characters in this story. Let's go and put the next one up there on the screen. Richard Ebright, who, once again, I want to give Richard a shout out. He is the Board of Governors Professor of Chemistry and Chemical Biology at Rutgers. But the thing is that Richard has been on the forefront of biosafety and pushing back against this vast behemoth for decades. I've cited him before. I found a quote of him in Scientific American back in 2007, pushing back against biodefense research in the post-anthrax world. So probably we owe, if there was ever a Cassandra around this, it's Richard. And he has also been on the forefront of this from the beginning. And as he currently points out there, despite possibly having caused a pandemic and definitely having repeatedly and gravely violated terms of a U.S. government grant, EcoHealth Alliance currently has 16 active U.S. government grants and contracts totaling more than $57.8 million. And that's another thing that I want to emphasize. Not all of what we're funding EcoHealth Alliance has to do with gain of function. Some of it actually traces back to what I alluded to, this shady, national bio-defense thing, which is housed within the same, WMD office inside of the Pentagon, that we know nothing about these agencies. They're basically black holes that have been operating with impunity now for 20 years. And the only reason that we even know anything about it is, they've caused one of the worst pandemics that the world has ever known.
Well, there's that. And there's also this question of the media knows that this stuff exists. And Ken, in Ken's segment, we'll talk a little bit about this. They know it exists. They don't ask any questions about it because, partially, if you do ask questions about any of this, you're a crazy conspiracy theorist. And Peter Daszak, who's being quoted in the article that was just up on the screen, was colluding with Fauci and with Francis Collins to cast anybody who was suspicious of the EcoHealth Alliance grant being used in Wuhan, partially with American taxpayer money, that we couldn't talk about, as a conspiracy theorist. And so that's how they've been able to shield themselves impenetrably from criticism. We'll have sort of independent media talking about this, but basically nobody else gives it airtime because the government itself will collude with the Pentagon, with the media to shut down any questions of it, or to at the very least ostracize you and cast you as a crazy person if you happen to have questions about, to your point, Sagar. They'll even tell you how important this research is. Well, if it's so important, then maybe you should have a little bit of transparency.
Well said.
Hey guys, ready or not, 2024 is fully upon us now, and Sagar and I have been brainstorming ways that we can really up our game for this critical election.
Yeah, we rely on our premium subs to expand our coverage, to add staff, to upgrade the studio. We just want to give you the best independent coverage of this election, which is possible. So if you can help us out, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com, or the link is down here in the description video. It really means the world to us, and if you like what we're all about, this is the best possible way to keep us 100% independent, working only for you.